I saw Walsh yesterday. Can't get enough of this guy. Well, that's not it. Hang on, that's not it.
You know what? What else would help?
Hang on, Walsh. Hang on. He's right. Chad Magendas going. All right, Walsh. I get this text message from you in the middle of the show. I'm trying to half concentrate and make balloon animals. Okay, this is from the Seattle Times. I'm going to quote from the Times here. Now the chair of the Washington Republican Party, Jim Walsh of Aberdeen, wants to flout this venerated legacy. What's the venerated legacy?
I don't know.
Okay.
Subscribing to the Seattle Times.
Okay. He intends to wrest this popular system away from voters through an initiative filed with the state this month. The regional initiative would, among other things, require in-person voting on Election Day and require voters to produce either a passport, a birth certificate, or an official immigration papers to register to vote. Okay, so what's your problem with all this, Walsh?
These sanctimonious nincompoops at the Seattle
Watch
Times
your language.
editorial board
Yes.
Are mouthing off about an initiative that they clearly didn't read. The initiative does not require in-person voting on Election Day. That is misinformation.
Ooh.
From a media outlet that has whined and complained about misinformation, trafficking in misinformation. Before they write an opinion editorial piece about IL 26-126, they should read IL 26-126. They will look less stupid if they actually read the initiative. What IL 26-126 does, and the only thing it does, is require proof of citizenship when you register to vote in Washington. That's it. That's all it does. And they wrote this whole stupid op-ed piece complaining about it doing something else that it doesn't do. The venerated tradition is mail-in voting, John.
Right.
And it doesn't touch mail-in voting at all. The initiative doesn't.
Okay.
It's crazy to me that this paper runs a whole opinion piece that's based on a false assumption. Remember Saturday Night Live, back when Gilda Radner was alive?
Yes.
She did a character called Emily Latelia, who would come on their newscast and do some heartfelt opinion statement that turned out to be completely wrong. And Chevy Chase would say, but that's not it at all, Emily. You got the wrong fact there. And she would say, never mind, and go away.
She'd confuse the word violence with violins. She'd do a whole thing on that, and then Chevy would correct her and goes, oh, never mind. Okay, so never mind on this one then. So let's talk about the initiative. It's not the first time the Seattle Times got something wrong. But so this initiative, 26-126, as you keep saying, basically says if you want to vote, just prove to us that you're a U.S. citizen. Prove to us that you are a citizen of the state of Washington, not a resident, a citizen. There are about 1.2 million immigrants in the state of Washington. About 300,000 of them are undocumented. And when you go to get a driver's license in the state of Washington, they'll opt you in to vote. Well, if you are not a citizen, you get opted in to vote, and then you could possibly, if you wanted, you could vote. Now, here's what the other side will say. Come on, Walsh, you're chasing after dust bunnies here. I mean, how many people are willing to risk 5 years in prison, possibly being deported? Really? You really believe there are that many people out there that are voting illegally in the state of Washington? You're just trying to dust all this stuff up because you're a xenophobe or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I like Xenos as much as anybody else does. Look, you had a state Senate election last cycle, November, last fall, that was decided by 180 votes.
Oh, this is Cortez and Brad Benton, right?
Benton.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you have elections that close, you got to be diligent about every vote. Now, I don't know how many illegal aliens or other people or legal aliens who aren't allowed to vote because they're not citizens yet. I don't know how many of them are voting, but I know that some are getting registered to vote. We did a PRA request that made public email exchanges within the Secretary of State's office where they acknowledge that some illegal aliens and some legal alien residents are registered to vote. It's happening for the reasons you described because of the automatic voter registration program, also called Motor Voter. Mm-hmm. So we know it's happening. How many are voting? We don't track that. Nobody watches that, so who knows? Here's the point, though. Aside from cleaning up the voter rolls of potentially improper non-citizens being registered to vote, this initiative restores people's trust in the system. And I think that's the real point of it. If we require some proof of citizenship, just like you need a valid ID to register to vote, just like right now if you get on a plane. You can't get on a plane with a standard Washington State driver's license anymore because it's not reliable. It doesn't meet real ID standards. So you got to have either an enhanced driver's license where you had to provide your birth certificate, or a passport where you had to provide your birth certificate, or some other more qualified document. So we're just trying to apply that kind of standard to voting. If you got to provide a good ID to get on a plane, why don't you have to provide a good ID to vote? I think it's common sense.
Yeah, if you think about it, like for those people who go, oh, come on, there's nobody doing it. Okay, then if you had two planes there and the folks on the left that say no one's doing it, don't worry about it, this is just a nonsense. You could say two planes, the Democrat gets a choice. They can get on the one plane where no one shows any ID, or they can get on the other plane where everybody shows ID, and they get a choice. So listen, nobody's going to do anything on the plane without the ID. Hop on that plane. You'll be perfectly Now, you may be perfectly safe, but you may not be perfectly safe. So then you'd say to the person, the Democrat, before he boards and makes his choice, which plane do you want? This is the plane where everyone has shown ID. This is the plane where we don't know who any of these people are. Now, again, according to their theory, oh, come on, no one's, okay, fine. Then get on that plane. Get on the plane where no one has shown any ID, right? What's the worst thing that can happen? So in this case, you read the people that have already come out against 26-126 is the fact, Jim, they're saying you're going to disenfranchise 1 million voters in the state of Washington.
And I think that's the point that the Seattle Times editorial board was trying to make in their op-ed. They did it so poorly, they screwed it all up. But no, it doesn't disenfranchise anybody. In other states, whether it's in-person voting, which most are, or mail-in voting, or some combination of the two, there's a more reliable system of checks and balances on registering to vote. You got to provide good ID. Often you have to show up in person, or if you do it online, you have to back it up with reliable identification. It's quality control. I mean, that's what it is. We want to make sure that people can trust our voting system, that anybody on the voting database, and remember, we send all these ballots, which are like pieces of gold, we send them out to the people on the database, on the voter roll in each of the 39 counties. So let's make sure those databases, those lists of voters, are as reliable and as good as they can be, and that will restore confidence in the election system. The fact that the left is against this boggles my mind. It's good government.
Well, here's what they'd say. Okay, let's take the Cortez and the Benton race. So anything that's that close, they have to do a recount. And I think they did the recount. They found 173 votes at first. Then after the recount, it was 172. That's the way it shook out. So they'll say if it's close like that, then we do a recount and we check again, and then we'll find any inaccuracies.
But the recount does not check the validity of each ballot that was cast, and that's the reason why, in that case, the WGOP sued. We filed a lawsuit because we, by independent investigation, determined that about 500 of those votes were made by people who weren't living in the district anymore. The votes were cast by people that we had affidavits didn't live in that part of the state anymore. They either moved to another part of Washington or moved out of Washington. And so it's not the fact that you do a recount doesn't guarantee the quality, the accuracy of the people who voted in the election. And by the way, that issue is still unresolved. I mean, we're not trying to undo the result of that election last November, but we do want clarity on how unreliable the voter database in that part of that Clark County was, because the voter rolls are not being well maintained and checked and for quality control and accuracy.
So on voter rolls, there was a bit of a brouhaha in Virginia that they were cleaning out the rolls too close to the actual election that caused a problem, and the governor had to respond to that. In this case, you'd give enough time to clean it out. Georgia was probably a test case because they made you show ID in Georgia. And then, of course, that was going to be Jim Crow too, or Jim Eagle or whatever Joe Biden sputtered out. Yeah, and the voter turnout increased. And I guess
people trust the system more.
Okay, so do you think this thing's going to pass? The initiatives are out there. Who's paying to get all the signatures on this thing, Walsh?
Well, I mean, this is going to be a Washington State GOP project, so we're going to pay for it. We're going to do it hopefully more efficiently, as our friends at Let's Go Washington have shown it can be done more efficiently. So we're going to see what we can do with this. It's hugely popular.
It is.
The polling indicates it's like 80% support for requiring voter ID. The rest of the stuff, the vote by mail, different numbers. But just this piece has wide support.
Some of the folks there in Olympia that are really fighting for democracy wanted to stop the initiative process, which has been in our Constitution since 1913. And a couple of things they wanted to put in place, that the person gathering the signatures, now they're getting paid, the person gathering the signatures have to sign the back of it saying, I verify that everybody that signed this thing, is a legal citizen of the state of Washington. And if it turns out
produced ID to sign the initiative, right?
But here's the crazy thing. If any of those signatures turn out to be invalid, the guy that collected the signature would go to prison, right?
Up to a C felony. That's right. We're not putting gangbangers and murderers in prison anymore, but we're going to put signature collectors in prison.
And did that pass?
No, it did not pass.
My God.
We killed it.
Okay.
But the point is, their standard for signing a petition for an initiative is you got to prove real valid ID.
Yeah.
And so we say, okay, well, how about you have to prove valid ID to register to vote? Oh, no. That's Jim Crow. That's voter suppression. And these morons at the Seattle Times, that was their last line. It's all voter suppression. It's like, get your facts right, hysterics, before you start making those aspersions.
So Jim Walsh from the 19th, do you think it's the Shakespeare line, that I think thou doth protest too much? That the Democrats, you don't need to look over there. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Like, why do they care so much about wanting us to have proof that you are who you say you are and you are a citizen?
Because they are benefiting from the current unverified, unqualified, less reliable system. And, they're nervous about any change. John, they're nervous they're losing ground politically anyway.
Uh-huh.
And so they don't want to give up any of their traditions that they've been able to do. It's like Tammany Hall. They're all terrified of any kind of reform or change because somebody's rice bowls are going to get broken. Maybe.
Yeah. Do you think that somebody would really risk to vote in the state? I mean, you can't even get some guy who's, 50 years old, lived his whole life. He doesn't, I don't care, I'm not going to vote. Do you really think that there's people here that are here illegally that would risk possibly 5 years in prison or being deported in order just to vote for, Jim Walsh or somebody else?
They may not even realize what's going on, John. I mean, the point is, if they're accidentally, wrongly registered to vote, those ballots are getting mailed out. And they shouldn't be. And when those ballots are getting mailed out and they're out there circulating around, there's risk that someone could get hold of that ballot and vote it improperly. It may not even be the person whose name is on the ballot wrongly. The fact we're mailing them out, broken chain of custody, no oversight of where those ballots are going. And ballots are gold, John. They're valuable.
Right.
And we've got to be really careful about how many we send out and where we send them.
Well, why not fix this as an upstream problem? So the person goes to register or they go to get a driver's license. Can, at that point, before they're automatically opted in, can't the state at that point go, let's see, you are from Guatemala, here's your driver's license, and then they get on an X out line that they can't get the ballot sent to the house? Wouldn't that be a better move?
Well, I mean, in a manner of speaking, that's what this IL 26-126 does. I mean, if they can't produce some reliable form of ID that they're a citizen, they can't be registered to vote. It approaches the issue from a little bit different angle than what you're saying, but it's the same idea. It's the same process.
All right, Mr. Walsh, I think you took enough whacks at the Seattle Times. Anything else you want to say about them, or you just want to leave it at that?
Yeah, I don't think I'm renewing my subscription, John. It was,
well, there's the headline. We buried it. You don't have a subscription to the Seattle Times.
Oh, well, look, if they apologize and acknowledge their mistake, we can mend this fence, but they've got to acknowledge their wrongdoing.
Well, let's check weather. Oh, hell just froze over. All right. Thanks, Mr. Walsh. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Good to talk to you guys.
All right. Let me get him out of here with his music he loves so much. Let's play him, but you can't hear. There he is. All right. All right, Walsh. Let's go over to Nate, the big